She kissed me goodbye and whispered, "I'm doing this for us." But something about the way she said it felt rehearsed. Every trip ended the same way. A warm hug, a confident smile, and the promise that everything she did was to build our future. But why did I always feel like I was the one being left behind, emotionally, not just physically? It wasn't just the goodbye that morning. It was the way she lingered a second too long in the mirror, applying her lipstick like she was painting on someone else's smile. Her suitcase rolled out the door with the same wheels that had taken her away from me more times than I could count. But this time, something caught in my throat when she said she'd miss me, because I didn't believe her. The lie wasn't loud. It didn't crash through the walls of our home. It whispered, subtle, soft, and rehearsed like a line she'd practiced until it sounded just real enough. I stood in the doorway watching her drive away, the taillights flickering like the last signals of a fading flame. And as the silence wrapped around me, I wondered if this was what love decaying sounded like. She had been traveling more lately. Conferences, retreats, work trips, always somewhere distant, always a weak cell signal, always a reason she couldn't FaceTime. It wasn't the distance that unsettled me. It was how easy it had become for her to create it. Once, she used to call during layovers just to say she missed the way I brewed her coffee. Now, hours would pass before I'd get a vague text about spotty Wi-Fi and tight schedules. The first seed of doubt didn't come from anything she said. Came from what she didn't. No questions about my day. No check-ins. Just silence wrapped in pleasantries. I told myself it was stress, that she was tired, that I was being paranoid. But paranoia doesn't notice perfume that wasn't there before. It doesn't register new passwords on old devices. It doesn't watch someone drift slowly until they don't even realize they've left. No, that was something else. She used to laugh in a way that made me feel like the world disappeared. But lately, her laugh sounded hollow, like an echo from a memory she wasn't in anymore. And sometimes, when I'd catch her smiling at her phone, she wouldn't even realize I was in the room. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I wanted to believe in us. But it's hard to believe in something that keeps disappearing. The turning point came on a Tuesday night. She left for a networking event, heels clicking like a countdown down the hallway. But when I looked at her calendar, the date was blank. Empty. Just like the explanations she'd started giving me. I stared at the screen, the empty day mocking me, and felt something inside crack. Not loud, just enough to let doubt seep in like water through old wood. She kissed me goodbye with a softness that used to mean something. And then she whispered, "I'm doing this for us." But the look in her eyes said otherwise. I stood there long after she left, watching the shadow she cast on the floor shrink until it was gone. And then I whispered to no one, "I don't think I believe you." I realized I didn't even know where she worked. Not the address, not the name, not even the industry. It hit me one afternoon when a client asked what my wife did, and I froze. Not like an awkward pause. I mean truly froze, like my brain tried to turn the question into smoke before I could inhale the truth. I could describe the way she liked her wine dry with just a whisper of cherry. I knew how she curled up in bed, knees tucked to her chest like a child trying to keep the world out. I knew she hated cilantro and loved thunderstorms. But her job? No idea. I managed a vague, "She's in consulting," and quickly changed the subject. But the moment hung in the air, heavier than it had any right to be. Because it wasn't just the fact that I didn't know where she worked. It was the realization that she didn't want me to know. That night, I waited for her to fall asleep before I sat on the couch and stared at her LinkedIn profile. Sparse. Generic. Like it was written by someone who had something to hide or nothing to show. There were no coworkers tagged in photos. No company events. Not even a mention of where she'd been for the last 3 strategy retreats. It was like watching a ghost try to live a double life. I thought back to a conversation we had months ago. She was rushing out the door, phone pressed tight to her ear, and I had asked, "Where is it again this time?" She had smiled, too quickly, and said, "Same place as last quarter." I nodded, as if that meant something. But now that moment echoed differently, like listening to a song you once loved, only to realize it was always off-key. It started unraveling from there. One thread at a time. She never brought work home. Not a single document, not even a branded pen. I never overheard a single Zoom call. She had meetings, sure, but only in the car, with the windows rolled up, as if the business she was part of only existed when I wasn't around. And then there was the phone, locked, always face down, with that look in her eye every time it buzzed, like she was reading secrets dressed as text messages. I asked once if I could borrow her charger. Her entire body tensed, just for a second. But once you start noticing tension, it becomes impossible to ignore. It's like seeing a crack in the foundation and realizing it runs deeper than you thought. She said she'd get it for me. She never did. I stopped asking. The more I looked back, the more the lies stopped hiding. The hours that didn't add up. The business dinners that always came with smudged lipstick and missing receipts. The plane tickets she never wanted me to see. The nights she came home smelling like hotel soap. It was like watching a magic trick in reverse. The illusion faded, and what was left was a version of my wife I didn't recognize. Not because she changed, but because I finally started looking. Her travel itinerary said Paris. The airport photos said Lisbon. The first lie wasn't spoken, it was printed on a luggage tag. She was in the shower. Steam curled out from the bathroom like smoke from a fire I couldn't see but already felt burning. I walked past her suitcase, sitting half-zipped near the door, and something made me stop. Curiosity. No, instinct. The kind that doesn't whisper. It screams when you've ignored it too long. I leaned down, brushing my fingers across the airline tag still looped through the handle. Lisbon, not Paris. That alone might have meant nothing. Layovers happen. But as I tugged the zipper back a little more, another tag peeked through. This one, from Frankfurt, Portugal to Germany. No sign of France. No mention of Paris. And yet, her entire trip had been framed around the city of love. She'd even sent me a photo of a croissant with the Eiffel Tower blurred in the background. But now, I couldn't help but notice something. The Eiffel Tower looked wrong. Off angle. Almost like it was a photo taken from Google, cropped just enough to feel real. The shower turned off. I zipped the bag closed and stepped back, my heart thudding in time with the droplets hitting the tile. When she came out, towel wrapped around her like a shield, I asked how the Paris trip was. She smiled, dreamy, far away. Romantic, that word. It wasn't the meaning. It was the way she said it, like it was a secret shared between lovers. Not with me, but with someone else. My blood ran cold. I nodded, pretending not to notice how her phone vibrated on the counter seconds later. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. M. Just M. When she saw me glance, she flipped the phone over and asked if I wanted wine. Like a magician with a sleight of hand distraction. I played along. I had to, because now I wasn't looking for answers, I was counting the lies. And there were so many, like the brochure I found days later, wedged in her coat pocket. A couple's spa retreat in Bavaria. My name wasn't on the reservation. Or the receipt tucked in her passport from a rooftop bar in Lisbon. A two-person dinner with champagne. But no mention of that in the story she told me, where she claimed to be in back-to-back meetings all evening. And still she smiled, kissed me goodnight, said she missed me while she was gone. The worst part? She meant it. In some way, twisted as it was, she believed it, because she'd crafted the lie so well it became her truth. But to me, it felt like watching a movie on mute. Same actors, same setting, but none of the emotion landed. Every story she told had cracks, and I was finally listening. She said her coworker Mia had booked their hotel. But Mia doesn't exist. Started with a name. Just a name. Mia. She'd mentioned her casually over dinner. How Mia booked the hotel, and how Mia always forgets to request late checkout. I nodded, pretending I knew who that was. But in truth, I'd never heard of her before. And for a marriage built on shared stories, it struck me as strange. This sudden new friend whose name had never once surfaced in all our late-night talks or wine-fueled weekend plans. I waited until she left for her next conference. The moment her Uber pulled away, I opened my laptop and typed Mia plus the company name into every search bar I could find. Nothing. Not one LinkedIn profile. No Facebook matches. Not even an email address on the website she said they worked for. The company itself had no footprint. No employee bios, no press releases, not even a proper location on Google Maps. It was like chasing smoke with a net. So I pushed further. I emailed the generic contact on the company's website, asking for information about a Mia in their travel division. The message bounced back. Undeliverable. Address not found. That's when the floor started to tilt. When she got back, I asked about Mia. Not accusingly, just enough curiosity to invite clarity. She smiled. Too wide. Too fast. "Oh, you know how corporate is," she said with a laugh, waving her hand like she was swatting away a fly. "It's all privacy contracts and red tape." She said it like it was a joke. But I wasn't laughing. Because the truth doesn't hide behind bounced emails and fake companies. It doesn't dodge your questions with charm and deflections. The truth stands up under scrutiny. Lies melt under heat. And this was starting to burn. Over the next few days, I began noticing how often Mia became the reason for everything. Mia scheduled the flight. Mia handled the itinerary. Mia booked the spa. Mia made the dinner reservation. Mia became a ghost who could open every door but leave no fingerprints behind. It was a lie so poorly built I would have pitted it if it hadn't been wearing my wife's voice. One night, I asked her again quietly over the dishes how long she'd worked with Mia. She paused just for a second. "Couple years now," she said. Funny. 2 years and not a single photo, not a single text, not even one after-work dinner story. Not even a last name. "Mia who?" I asked. She blinked. "Just Mia." And that's when I knew. The first real lie wasn't even the biggest. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't arrive in screams or slammed doors. It arrived dressed in everyday clothing, carrying someone else's suitcase, booking someone else's hotel room. It arrived in the form of Mia, who doesn't exist. She left her personal laptop open. I almost didn't look. But then I saw a folder called My Hearts. She'd gone out to run errands. Just 20 minutes, maybe less. Her laptop was on the kitchen table, humming quietly, lid half closed like an eyelid in sleep. I told myself not to look. I even walked past it twice. But something in me had already made the decision before I touched the trackpad. The screen lit up. No password. No hesitation. And there it was. Right on the desktop. A folder named My Hearts. Plural. Something about that word made my stomach turn before I even opened it. Inside were 2 subfolders. My Love V. My Love The. I clicked the first. Photos bloomed across the screen like rot-through wallpaper. Venice. Her, wrapped in a beige coat I'd never seen before, nestled into the side of a man I'd never met. Gondolas in the background. A kiss on his cheek. Her smile not just happy but radiant. Intimate. Like this was their story. The second folder was Santorini. A white dress. Sunset wine. Her fingers laced with his across a rooftop table. Him feeding her a grape like they were in some kind of perfume commercial for betrayal. 2 men. 2 places. 2 lives. Neither of them included me. And that was only the beginning. Because then I noticed the dates. They overlapped. Not weeks apart, days. She had flown straight from one to the other like a world tour of deception, like her heart had boarding passes she never gave me. I found selfies. Videos. Even handwritten notes scanned into the folders, things like counting down the hours until I'm with you again. And in one video, her voice. Soft. Almost reverent. "You make me feel alive." I paused it. Closed the lid. And just sat there. The silence in the kitchen was unbearable, like the house itself was holding its breath. I looked at the clock. She'd be home soon. I knew I couldn't unsee what I saw. Couldn't unknow the names she'd whispered into other pillows. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was emotional. It was documented. Cataloged. Archived in high resolution. She didn't just cheat. She curated it. 2 lives. 2 lovers. And me somewhere off stage holding on to a marriage that was already empty. And now I finally had my confirmation. No more doubt. No more what-ifs. Just the truth. Ugly. Undeniable. And time-stamped. What if I was just being paranoid? Or worse, what if I was just one chapter in her story? I stared at the closed laptop for what felt like hours. The screen had gone dark, but my mind hadn't. It played every moment back on loop, her smile, her goodbyes, the way she used to rest her head on my chest and say, "You're my home." Was she lying then? Or had I just expired? I kept asking myself that. Like I was a carton of milk she forgot to throw out. Still sitting there, thinking I was enough while she opened new bottles in secret. I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. That maybe my heart's was an art project or some twisted fiction folder. But you don't kiss fiction in Venice. You don't toast to it in Santorini. You don't look at it the way she looked at them. And the worst part? I loved her. Still. Even as every message she'd ever sent, every "I miss you," every "I'm doing this for us" turned to dust in my hands. It's strange. You spend years learning someone's habits, the way they stir their tea, the exact pitch of their laugh when they're drunk. But you never learn the look they give someone else. Until you see it. And now I couldn't unsee it. I walked through the house like a ghost, brushing past the life we built together. Framed wedding photos. Her favorite throw blanket on the couch. The dent in the hallway from where we dropped the bed frame and laughed so hard we forgot about the bruise. Those things used to feel like anchors. Now they felt like set pieces. I was living in a play. And I wasn't even the lead. She played her part well, warm, devoted, ambitious. She made love feel like a promise carved in stone. But now? It felt more like pencil on wet paper. A script she rewrote as she pleased. I kept asking myself, was I the mistake? The placeholder? Or worse, the cover story? Maybe I was the guy she came home to for stability while chasing passion in other time zones. Maybe I was the excuse she whispered when she left, asterisk, I have a husband, he worries, asterisk, just enough truth to make the lie feel noble. And maybe, just maybe, she loved me. In her own way. But not enough. And that's the part that tore me up the most. Not that she lied. But that I wasn't even worth telling the truth to. I waited until she booked her next business trip. Then I followed her across the border. She said she'd be gone 5 days. Same tone. Same practiced smile. Another client meeting, this time in Montreal. She kissed me goodbye at the door, told me to water the succulents, and disappeared into a rideshare like it was just another Tuesday. What she didn't know was that I'd already bought my ticket. Same flight. 3 rows behind. I didn't plan it to hurt myself. I needed proof. Something undeniable. Something that would silence the part of me still begging to believe this was all just a bad misunderstanding. The flight was uneventful. She didn't see me, she was too busy texting, smiling at a screen she held like a secret. She ordered red wine. Read half a novel. Laughed softly once. Not at me. Never at me. When we landed, I stayed back. Watched her exit the plane. Watched her pause at the gate, scan the crowd. Then he appeared. Not just a man. The man. The one from Santorini. The rooftop dinner. The clinking glasses and the whisper-soft kisses in every photo I couldn't forget. She didn't hesitate. She walked right into his arms. Kissed him. Slow. Deliberate. Like they had time to waste and a history to honor. They didn't look over their shoulders. Why would they? In her world, I was at home, probably making coffee or walking the dog. I wasn't supposed to exist here in this part of her life. They held hands as they walked toward a black SUV. He opened the door for her like it was a ritual. Like he'd done it many times before. And me? I stood near the airport cafe, hidden behind glass and strangers, my heart folding in on itself. No screaming. No confrontation. No drama. Just silence. Because betrayal doesn't always sound like a door slamming or a voice raised. Sometimes it sounds like nothing at all. Sometimes it's the quiet click of a car door closing, your wife inside, driving off into someone else's story. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. What I saw was enough. She had built a life that didn't need me. And now I had to decide what to do with mine. Her real life was in another country. And I was her side story. I thought I'd seen the worst of it at the airport. That kiss? That hand-holding? That ride into someone else's life? But the truth didn't stop there. It never does. The next few days became an obsession. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I needed to know who she really was because whatever mask she wore at home, it clearly wasn't the only one. It started with a reverse image search. One of the photos from her laptop, the rooftop shot in Santorini. I uploaded it, heart pounding. And then I saw it. Her face plastered across a glossy online ad for a boutique in Barcelona. A floral logo. An artsy name. Her name, but not the one I knew. In the article, she was listed as founder, creative director, and entrepreneur in love with design and her fiancé, Raphael. Fiancé. My mouth went dry. I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe a lookalike. Maybe someone using her photo without permission. But the rabbit hole got deeper. In a local lifestyle magazine from Lisbon, she was quoted under another name. This time as co-owner of a luxury travel planning firm. Same smile. Different hairstyle. Different man, Andre described as her life partner and fellow visionary. My chest felt like it was caving in. She wasn't just cheating. She was building. Maintaining. Separate lives. 3 of them that I knew of. each one carefully tailored. Different names, different accents in her bio quotes, different dreams. And me? The husband who watered her plants, folded her laundry, and believed she was on a business trip. I was a chapter she skimmed, a background character in a screenplay where she starred in every scene. There was no us. There never had been. There was only the version of her I'd been allowed to see. She wore devotion like a costume, changed it depending on the audience, and I, naive, trusting, clapped at every performance. The truth didn't break me. It hollowed me out, because now I understood. She didn't betray me in one grand act. She erased me bit by bit until I was just convenient. A passport stamp, a fallback plan, a home with the lights still on in case one of her worlds collapsed. And when that realization sank in, so did the next step. It was time for her to come home, because now I had a story to tell. Fake names, false documents, fabricated birthdays. She didn't just lie, she erased herself. I waited until she left for groceries. That's the part that still stings, the ordinariness of it. She kissed me on the cheek, said she'd be back in an hour, and vanished like she always did. Like I didn't already know who she really was. I opened her laptop. No hesitation this time. I knew where the rot lived now. My heart's was just the surface. The real horror was buried deeper, behind folders named after mundane things, tax stuff, client docs, receipts. Inside those were scanned passports. Plural. Driver's licenses from countries we'd never been to together. Birth certificates for people who didn't exist, or rather, people she became. Each document carefully designed. High-res scans. Real-seeming watermarks. Even matching social profiles to back them up. One identity listed her as a Spanish expat living in Lisbon. Another had her as a Greek-American gallery owner in Berlin. And in yet another, she was Canadian, single, no kids, free-spirited. Different names. Different birthdays. Different truths. Each with its own backstory. Each with photos, real ones, cropped to fit the version of her they belonged to. I wasn't her husband. I was a role she played. Like a character she slipped into when the lighting was right and the audience believed hard enough. She didn't just cheat. She fractured herself. I thought the betrayal was romantic, infidelity, secrets, late-night texts. But it wasn't. It was existential. The woman I married didn't exist. Not really. She was a collage of borrowed traits, false smiles, and practiced gestures. I scrolled through spreadsheets tracking dates, currencies, even code words she must have used when her lives began to overlap. It was like watching someone juggle glass, except I was one of the objects. Fragile. Replaceable. In one file titled Rotation, I found a list. Raphael, March. Andre, April. And me, May, June. I wasn't even given a name. Just an initial. When she returned from the store, she hummed while unpacking groceries, cheese, olives, red wine. The same wine we drank the night she told me we'd grow old together. I watched her from across the kitchen. And for the first time, I didn't see my wife. I saw a performance. A shadow learning how to mimic warmth. She asked how my day was. I smiled and said fine. Because now I wasn't playing husband. I was playing along. She once told me I'm doing all of this for us. Now I realize us never existed. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. Didn't rage or beg or demand the truth. What truth could I even ask for when every answer would come from a woman who wore different names like dresses, changing them depending on the weather or the man? She came home that night humming to herself, bags rustling, keys jangling like everything was normal. I watched her float through our kitchen like a ghost, her ghost wearing my wife's skin. She asked if I wanted dinner. I said I wasn't hungry. It wasn't a lie. I was starving in other ways. That night, I packed quietly. A few clothes. Important papers. The ring box I'd kept tucked in my drawer, not because I still believed, but because I needed to see it one last time before letting it go. I didn't take much. After all, I wasn't leaving home. I was leaving the stage. I left her a note on the table. Just one line, written in the same pen I used to write my vows. Goodbye, whoever you are. That was it. No accusations. No dramatic punctuation. No signature. Because I realized something. Some betrayals don't deserve confrontation. They deserve absence. You don't argue with smoke. You walk away from the fire. I never heard from her again. Not really. A few emails short, mechanical, asking if I was okay. I never responded. What would I say? That I missed someone who never existed? That I loved a character in a story I didn't even know I was in? It's been months now. Sometimes I still wake up expecting her in the kitchen, barefoot, asking about my day like she ever cared. But it fades quickly. Like dreams do once you recognize they were never real. People ask what happened. I usually say we grew apart. It's easier than explaining that I was married to a mirage, that I gave my heart to a map with no destination. She once said, I'm doing this for us. But there was no us. There was only her rewriting reality in 3 languages across 5 cities with names I'll never untangle. She didn't break my heart. She convinced it that it was never whole to begin with. And that's the part that lingers, not the lies, not the men, not the passports. The emptiness. The silence. The echo of a life I thought I lived.